At the edge of the forest near Mount Fuji, locals speak of a yokai called Itoyomi, the thread reader. She doesn't appear in the trees like the other spirits said to wander that forest. She appears in your house weeks after you visited. The story goes that anyone who walks the forest paths alone picks up a single red thread, so fine you'd mistake it for a hair, caught on their sleeve without noticing. It means Itoyomi has marked you as someone who didn't belong there, someone who walked where the lost should walk alone. A nurse from Fujiyoshida used to tell this one. Her uncle worked forest patrol, searching for people who went in and didn't come out. He said the rule among the patrol officers was simple. If you find a red thread on your clothing after a search, burn the clothing that night. Don't wash it, don't fold it, burn it before you sleep. One officer ignored the warning. He was tired, it was late. He tossed his jacket over a chair and went to bed. He told his wife about it the next morning, laughing about old superstitions. 3 nights later, she woke to the sound of thread being pulled, slow, deliberate, like a needle dragging through fabric. She found her husband sitting upright in bed, eyes open, perfectly still. Around his throat was a single loop of red thread, pulled tight enough to leave a mark, but not tight enough to have killed him. He never spoke again, not a word for the rest of his life. The doctors found nothing wrong with him physically. His wife said the only thing that changed was his eyes. When snow fell outside, he'd turn toward the window and watch it, unblinking, until it stopped. She always wondered what he saw out there. She never asked. She said some answers aren't worth the thread it costs to pull them loose.
In a small town in Aomori, they say if you find a red thread tied to your pinky and you didn't tie it yourself, someone has already chosen you. Yuki found it on a Tuesday morning, a single red thread looped around her finger, faint and frayed, like it had been there for years. She laughed it off and cut it with scissors. That night, she dreamed of a woman in a white kimono sitting at the edge of her bed, sewing something into the dark with needle and thread that glowed faint red. The woman never looked up. She just kept sewing, whispering a name that wasn't Yuki's over and over, like she was stitching it into the air. Yuki woke to find the thread back on her finger, tighter now, cutting faintly into her skin. She told her sister, who laughed, until she found her own thread the next morning. Then their mother found hers. Each night, the woman in white sewed a little more, and the thread grew tighter and shorter, pulling them all towards something none of them could see yet. The old women in town say once the thread runs out, the sewing is done.
Deep in the mountains of Nagano, locals refuse to speak of Kagami Yome, the mirror bride. To say her name aloud after dark, they believe, is to invite her reflection into your own. The legend begins with a scorned woman named Setsuko, who was abandoned on her wedding night. Her betrothed had found a younger beauty in the valley below and left without a word. Setsuko, still dressed in white, walked to the ancient mirror that had belonged to her grandmother, a black lacquered frame carved with crane bones, and stared into it until dawn. She never looked away, not once, not ever. Travelers passing through the village of Kuroyama sometimes stumbled upon the old Fujiwara estate, a crumbling wooden structure swallowed by cedar trees. It should have been empty, but lights flickered behind the paper screens, and on cold nights, the faint rustle of a silk kimono could be heard from within. A merchant named Daisuke made that mistake one autumn evening. The fog had rolled in thick and fast, swallowing the mountain road whole. He saw the warm glow through the trees and knocked. The door opened on its own. Inside, every wall was lined with mirrors, dozens of them, Hundreds, each one reflecting the same woman, pale as ash, dressed in a wedding kimono that had yellowed with decades of rot. She stood in the center of the room, smiling with her head tilted just slightly too far to one side. "You look lost," she said softly. "Stay, I've been so alone." Daisuke noticed something wrong immediately. His own reflection stared back at him from every mirror, but it wasn't moving the way he was. His reflection was already seated, already smiling, already trapped. He ran. He claims that's why he survived. But when Daisuke finally reached the next town and found an inn, the innkeeper's daughter screamed. Daisuke turned to the mirror by the entrance and saw it, himself, standing there, dressed in a rotting wedding kimono, head tilted too far, smiling. The reflection raised a hand slowly. Daisuke had not. He fled the inn and never stopped moving. They say he smashed every mirror he ever encountered for the rest of his life. They also say it didn't help, because Kagami Yome doesn't need a mirror anymore. She already has one.
In the mountain villages of Nagano, elders speak of Mizukage, the shadow beneath still water. She appears only during the Oban season, when the boundary between the living and the dead grows thin. Travelers crossing the old stone bridge over Kuroi Pond would sometimes see a pale woman standing waist-deep in the black water below, her long hair fanned across the surface like ink spreading through silk. She never moved, she never spoke, she only watched. A young merchant named Kenji once crossed that bridge alone at dusk. He saw her and stopped, transfixed by her stillness. She was beautiful in the way abandoned things are beautiful, haunting, hollow, perfect. She raised one arm and pointed at him. Kenji ran. He didn't stop until he reached the village inn, breathless and trembling. The innkeeper listened to his story, then set down her lantern with a slow, deliberate hand. Did she point at you, or did she point at your reflection? Kenji had no answer. That night he dreamed of cold water filling his lungs. He dreamed of looking up through a dark surface at a world he could no longer reach. He dreamed of a face pressed against the underside of the pond's skin. His own face, mouth open, eyes wide, fingers clawing at something that would not break. He woke before dawn, gasping. But when he looked into the wash basin beside his bed, the reflection that stared at him blinked 1 second too late. By morning, Kenji was gone. His belongings sat untouched. His sandals were neatly placed at the door. At Kuroi Pond, locals say, there are now 2 pale figures standing in the water. Both of them point at the bridge.